Hi, Delora.
Ashley.
We are back. We are back.
How are you? How are you? Seriously.
Girl, that is the question. That is the question. I am surviving. I am alive, but for
Thank you,
sure,
Jesus.
there's some check-ins that need to happen between us today. Yes, I'm so happy that we get to speak a little joy and positivity because, as our listeners know, we record this podcast on Thursdays.
We do.
Yesterday was a dark day in the history of our country.
Yes.
And the heaviness of that has definitely continued for me into today because of the coverage, the continuation of seeing a lot of the footage, obviously just the heaviness of what everything meant and means. And, you know, you are obviously one of the main people I was talking to when it was happening, but the heaviness continues for me today. How are you, my friend?
Well, thank you for asking. I've just been doing a lot of thinking. I've been thinking about the American experiment. I remember the first time I heard that phrase, American experiment. I had to have been in my late 20s, and it was me, I love politics. So it was a political commentator talking about our great nation. And I was like, experiment? And I realized that I was unaware of the 250-year rule. Every great civilization declines after 250 years.
You're educating me today because this is a first.
Ashley, America is 243 years old. Okay.
Wow.
So we're knocking on that door, and I'm not saying this to be very doomsday or anything like that, but we have to just take a closer look at where we are right now, because our state capital, our U.S. Capitol, has not been ramsacked like that since 1812.
Yeah. Like I said, dark day, right? And that's both sides of the aisle. It should be considered a very dark day. Thank you for the history. And listeners, thank you so much for being with us today. We obviously, again, want to hit you with the pop culture, the entertainment you enjoy, but we cannot not address the realities of what's going on in the world and what's going on in America.
I do have one more thing I wanted to mention too. My heart has been out for all the individuals who New Year resolution was to get off social media and to have a dry January. None of those things are happening at this point.
That whole dry January thing, I didn't even know was a thing. I think I saw Tom Holland post something like, I was good for a good 12 hours. I'm like, bro, you better than me. I've never attempted. I'm sipping on some Terramana tequila right now.
I mean, the no social media was me. Like, I went as far as, like, my favorite three are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I took off Facebook because, honestly, I'm only on Facebook because everybody I know over the age of 40 is on there, right?
Exactly.
Like, you're just only
you're
only there to no offense.
No shade, but a little bit.
just a little.
You still actively post on Facebook? Okay. Cute.
Literally everything I post on Facebook is something I post on Instagram.
Exactly.
Like, that is how that works.
Over. Exactly.
So I literally took Facebook off my phone, but then, after yesterday, doom scrolling commenced for hours. That little time restraint, I need for you to get out of my business, okay? Yes, I put a limit of 2 hours on there, but as yesterday, we went ahead and just blocked that for the rest of the day. Don't give me any more signals. I don't need to know my activities right now. I need to know if we're going to have a world the next day.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And sweet, dear listeners, we hope that you are doing whatever it is you need to do to get through. As I've said on a podcast previously, meditation and prayer have been very much saving graces for me. So I hope that you're doing what you need to do for your mental health and well-being, because it's a lot. And Happy New Year, but this is feeling low-key like some 2020 bullshit that I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do.
December what? 30th, or no, I'm sorry, December. How many days has it been? This is December 40th.
We're recording on the 7th, honey, the 7th of January 2021.
So you know what? And in this, yes, prayer, yes, meditation, moving your body, grounding yourself.
Thank you for walks. Thank you for allowing me to be able-bodied to take these walks.
Yes. And wonderful television. Wonderful
television, which is why we created and welcome back to Recapping with
Delora
and Ashley. That segue was beautiful, Delora. Let's move on to some of our other topics, as well as, some of these hot topics that have been going on this past week. So just one other thing in terms of, the world and news and all of that is, COVID continues to be in the major headlines for all of us. And we spoke previously about the Grammys. Well, the Grammys have been announced to be postponed for those of you who are not in the loop. And that is due to COVID-related concerns because they were going to record the show in Los Angeles. And it has now been rescheduled for March 14th. I was going to say 13th, March 14th. This is just another award show, obviously, that's getting pushed back because last summer, the Academy Awards had already announced that their 2021 show would be moved from February to April. So,
well, COVID is running rampant in California right now.
Yes, it is.
They have really insane numbers in overran hospitals. So, I'm glad that they're making the tough decisions, but people's lives and healths
are
matter.
In jeopardy. Yeah. Yes. And shout out to my girl Shannon, who is on her way right now, if she has not already reached California, to be a nurse in the hospitals there. So God bless Shannon. Love you. Yes. Take care of yourself, girl.
I have a cousin who's a traveling nurse too. Love you, Audrey.
Yeah. Love you all. Nurses are amazing. Okay.
Absolutely.
So hot topics. Let's discuss some of the love lives of some of these Hollywood wives, Delora. Okay, first up, Kim Kardashian West and Kanye West. Are they on the path to divorce? This week, it was announced on multiple outlets that after 6 years of marriage and more than 8 years together, including 4 children, that they were going their separate ways. In a statement for E! Online, I read that Kim and Kanye are still trying to work through things in their relationship. They're in therapy, working on their marriage. Divorce has been discussed, but Kim wants more than anything for their relationship to work. There have been rumors that have been circulating since this divorce announcement was out, such as Kanye having an affair with YouTuber Jeffree Star.
What the actual... What? That is the most insane rumor I've heard in ever.
Well, he is fanning the flames a little bit because apparently he has a house in Wyoming. And as we know, he's followed this couple. Kanye and Kim have a ranch out in Wyoming, and that's where Kanye spends the majority of his time. Apparently, there's a resurfaced tweet from 2011 where Jeffree Star is talking about we had so much fun last night.
I don't know how true those
exactly.
Those were.
These are receipts.
You don't kiss and tell like that. If this is true.
These are receipts that are definitely shady. Definitely. Do not seem legit. The rumor originated from a TikTok star who apparently is all about, sensationalism and putting out things that are not necessarily true. But given the events of the past year and some change, girl, this would not shock me.
Aliens can show up at my front door today.
Let me tell you
like, what's good? What you need?
Can I go with you? Can I go with you?
I always wanted to go to Saturn. Can you hook me up real quick?
See, I don't even have a favorite planet. I'm open,
You know that's baby girl's favorite planet, so that's why it's.
I did not know, baby Amara. So Delora, what do you think when this news dropped about Kim and Kanye possibly filing for divorce?
Girl, I was just as surprised as Ariana Grande getting engaged. Like, this is not very shocking news. I knew Kim was over it. I mean, I'm surprised Kim lasted this long, frankly.
Indeed.
And this is the Kardashian media machine leaving out breadcrumbs. It was just, I think it was in December or November, Kim and Kanye live separate lives. This is their modern marriage. And even this news, they haven't filed. They're really thinking about getting divorced, and they're just letting you know. So that means that relationship has progressed a lot further than what they're telling us, So,
well, she has Laura Wasserman on retainer, right? So anytime you want to,
they know how to get divorced. Those Kardashians.
Yeah, I read articles too about the financial implications. Not that either of them will be hurting if they get a divorce.
But how do you divide it? Because Wendy Williams, being as messy as she always is, she said that Kanye built the house, but Kim owns the land. So I like to know how that cookie crumbles.
I just think they're both so filthy rich at this point. Do we care? You can have that house. It's fine. I'm going to go ahead and go build me another one. I know both of them.
Point, it's about who's vindictive. You know what I mean? Like, if their relationship is even that. Because honestly, I could see them amicably. Like,
I was going to say, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if it got to any vindictive level. And as far as the assets goes, both their biggest assets are their individual businesses, right? So again, in terms of
he has made her owner of his business. Like, she has stock in, I don't know his official name, but the Yeezy brand.
And yeah. So my thought when I heard this news is agreed. I was not even remotely shocked, but again, yes, I'm surprised that Kim, after really hearing like, oh yeah, it has been 6 years y'all been married. It has been 8 years y'all been together. Kim, you lasted 7.5 years longer than I really thought you would at first. I remember saying when Kim and Kanye first got together, I said either they're going to break up after 6 months or they're going to be together forever. Because the pairing it seemed like it could be so perfect or a complete train wreck.
And I also wonder, like, is Kim really this patient? But I mean, I don't know what it's like to have a multi-millionaire husband. So I mean, people are willing to put up with some things that.
One thing I read.
And I don't want to. I'm not knocking my honey. I don't want to say that either. But you know what I mean. Like, I don't know.
No, because I mean, we haven't spoken to during our conversation right now. But as people who are following any of this as far as celeb, stories knows Kim and Kanye have gone through a lot, and Kim has put up with quite a bit within the last year, right? Yes. He had his whole meltdown with, going after her and her family on Twitter. He had obviously his run,
apparently
had his whole run for president. There have been a lot of factors that when they've happened, you've wondered how Kim has been managed to stay by his side.
And they're both billionaires according to themselves.
Exactly. And Kris Jenner, because that's what she wants to project out there.
No, I don't believe that, but okay. They're not broke. But
no. They're hardly broke. But as it has been debunked by Forbes, Kylie is for sure not a billionaire. Neither here nor there. So back to Kim and Kanye real quick. Kim has put up with a lot, in my opinion, but one thing that I read that made a lot of sense was she has felt like Kanye has always had her back until recently. So she had always felt like when they first got together, there were people who would talk so much shit on her name, say, oh, you can't be with this reality star. She has a sex tape on that's going to ruin your career. He was like, listen, bump all of that. I love her. I'm going to be with her. She has felt like
being with him has validated her for sure.
I mean, as we have talked about off mic with some of the love decisions that the Kardashians have made, it has not hurt their brand. We will say that. But yeah, I mean, I think that if Kim and Kanye go their separate ways, I just hope for the children's sake that it does remain amicable. They have 4 children together now.
Can you imagine living in a house with this, self-proclaimed genius who also deals with,
bipolar disorder?
Yes, I'm sure the hologram of her father was the last straw. Like, that is just no words. No words.
I have to say, like, I could not tell you what possibly was the last straw, because a lot of that was joking.
I'm joking.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, like, for real, a lot of things have compounded on each other when I've heard about it. And I'm like, we're not celebrities. Celebrities live in a different world.
Absolutely.
They accept and deal with a lot of shit that we as normal people do not have to.
Mm-mm.
But Kim and Kanye, wish y'all both the best in whatever direction y'all decide to go.
I just care that their kids are going to be okay,
Yeah, want the best for the babies.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, guys, feel free to let us know your thoughts on the potential Kim and Kanye divorce situation.
We would love to know.
Let's move on to this Zoe Kravitz divorce announcement that happened as well this past week. So Miss Zoe Kravitz, if you're not aware, is the offspring of Lenny Kravitz and
Gorgeous people.
Lisa Bonet. So her and her husband, who was a fellow actor, it began their relationship in 2016. They met apparently at a bar. In June of 2019, they got married at the Paris home of her father, Lenny Kravitz.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband's name is Carl, is it Glusman or Glusman? I believe it is pronounced maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, again, the last week, it was announced that after 18 months of marriage, Zoe has filed for divorce. Delora, is this just another example of Hollywood marriages are not built to last?
I just feel like quarantine has just opened up people's eyes in ways that they didn't know before. I mean, again, speaking to the celebrity life or the type of job descriptions, the type of jobs they have. As an actor, you get up and go, and there's a lot of traveling. You don't really anticipate being with your spouse all day, every day. And in some cases, I don't know if she's hurting or anything like that, but not thinking about A-list stars, some of these actors and musicians don't know where their next checks are coming next. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that on her.
Her husband is not a extremely well-known actor, right?
Mm-hmm. She's the A-list star out of the two of them, but I'm sure this is not what they signed up for, and a lot can be exposed.
To be together, to really be together is not what they signed up for. I didn't sign up to be with my husband 24/7.
Honestly, I think it'd be interesting. Obviously, I love my husband so much and Amara, but I just feel like, what would it be like if we were bi-coastal? Like, a lot of people do these things, and
yeah. And it works for them.
It works for them. And that's honestly how they keep, things going longer than probably what they should be. So being locked down, that I'm sure a lot of skeletons came falling out the closets because, everyone was busy dusting during this quarantine.
That was so well said. I was going to say, it reminds me of what I heard Goldie Hawn say about the secret to the success of her and Kurt Russell's long-standing relationship, in that over the years, the percentage of time you spend with somebody should lessen. She was like, when we first got together, we spent 100% of our time together. After maybe 5 years, it was like 80. After 10 years, we're going down. By now, it's like we only need to spend like 30% of our time together.
Because you get excited to see your boo after a while.
Exactly. So I don't think I quoted Goldie completely accurately.
Wouldn't object to that.
Yeah. I'm sure I didn't quote Goldie completely accurately, but the sentiment is, to your point, that the non-togetherness at 100% of the time seems like it works well, especially when your relationship is seasoned. But theirs had not yet gotten seasoned. It'd been 18 months, so damn.
It was pretty fresh. It was pretty new.
4 years, but only 18 months of marriage. So
quarantine,
unfortunately,
had to have done it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was sad to hear that one did kind of surprise me.
I thought they were cute too.
Yeah, and I follow Zoe on social media. Same. So, I'm a Zoe Kravitz fan. So
like her daddy. Love me
that
some
man
money.
is aging like some. Ooh-wee. Don't have the words for you, sir, but you know what you got going on. All right, so our last hot topic to continue our love lives theme: Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles, Delora. So yet again, a story that took me by surprise. So
it seems so random.
As we know, Olivia Wilde had just had a rather surprising split from her longtime partner, who she was engaged to, Jason Sudeikis. They share 2 children together. They have been together for, I think, almost a decade. Mm-hmm. Rumor has it that Olivia, who is 36, and Harry, who is 26, fell for each other on the set of her upcoming psychological thriller that she's directing called Don't Worry, Darling. They took their romance public over this past weekend when they were spotted holding hands at his agent's wedding in California. Is this a legit romance for Olivia, or is she just getting her groove back? Is she Stella out here?
Ashley, let me say 2 things, right? So first, I didn't know they were just simply engaged, her and Jason, right? And I told this to my husband the other day. I was like, I have always thought she was outside Jason's league. I have always thought that. So that was just an interesting pairing, but I guess she liked to do the made her laugh. Now she wants to look at something, because that's what you get when you get, she wants to look at something and she wants that accent. Okay.
And as I think Justin or somebody said when I was watching the story, they can share clothes. They have the same aesthetic. They can share them clothes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so me being like the bookworm that I am, I'm very close to the Barnes and Nobles in my area. And so whenever I want a magazine, I always call in or whatever. And I was like, I'm trying to get Beyonce's British Vogue cover from December, right? And I was like, oh, do you all have the latest Vogue? And she's like, oh, Harry Styles? I'm like, no. But she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Harry Styles has been selling out and everybody's been calling for it. And it just tickled me, because everybody, I mean, he has a strong fan base, okay? And he's out here.
They are loyal.
On the cover of Vogue. He is also the first man to be on the cover of Vogue by himself. So. Oh,
he made history. I didn't even realize that. For those who are not familiar, Harry Styles was in a very popular boy band called One Direction, and has since gone off and had a very successful solo music career.
His new song right now is a bop. I guess I should make it one of my
hidden gems.
Watermelon?
Which
Golden.
Oh,
it's a new one.
Listen to it.
It's a new one.
His music has not, as a solo artist, has not really been my style. I was much more a fan of Zayn's solo music career in terms of my taste.
Yes.
Because I'm more on the R&B tip. Personally, but good to know. I will put that on my list to check out. But
Golden, it's like, if you imagine what a beautiful spring day was like in like the 70s, you know what I mean? It's giving you sunshine.
And that's so Harry's vibe.
It's giving you narcotics of whichever of your choice.
So you said I just smoke a little weed when I'm listening to this?
But you could tell they were high during a certain part, because they were just riffing. They were just. It was very glorious. I loved it. You know me. I'm a little bit open on my music taste. So.
Yeah, you are. You're more open than me. I mean, I've listened to some of his music, but again, he has not been my particular flavor. But I'm gonna listen to it though. So back to this coupling before we move on.
Yes. She defended him, by the way, for wearing his dress on the cover of Vogue.
She loved it. She lived for it. Again, they're going to share clothes. Laura, is this for real though? Are they going to be some long-lasting couple?
So I will say this: it's a little bit convenient that they are getting photographed all the time now since the announcement has been made. I just think it's just something to talk about right now. I don't know if Harry Styles is ready to settle down, but I do think he likes older women. So let them have their fun. She ain't having no more babies right now.
Be on your Leonardo DiCaprio for a little bit. I'm not mad at you whatsoever. Olivia Wilde has always been a stunningly beautiful woman to me.
Girl, again,
stunningly.
I didn't get the Jason Sudeikis thing. I mean, I think he's not ugly. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that.
No, and the beard helps because beards save lives.
Save lives, okay? like the gentleman we're going to be talking about later today, later in this conversation. Rege.
So let's wrap up our hot topics and move into our next segment, which is microdose. Delora, let's talk about the Bachelor, baby. We have our first Black Bachelor in Mr. Matt James. So this has been a long time coming in terms of Bachelor Nation. This man
very long time coming
is the first Black lead for The Bachelor in 23 seasons. This is the 24th season of The Bachelor. Not The Bachelorette, because we had Rachel Lindsay, who was the first Black lead ever.
The best
the 21st season of The Bachelorette back in 2017. But again, Matt is the first Black male lead.
And she's still with her husband, which is very sweet.
She is. Matt is 28. And he has started, in Bachelor words, his journey to find love as of this past Monday, airing at 8 p.m. on ABC. Justin Sylvester, one of our favorites from E!, mentioned that a record number of women applied for a shot at love with Matt. 6,500 to be exact.
Yeah, I bet.
Matt was originally supposed to be on this last season of The Bachelorette with Claire Crawley, which I don't know if you watched, but I did. It was quite the shakeup because Claire found love very early and left the show after 4 episodes and was replaced by Tayshia Adams. Another side note about Matt is that he is BFFs with Bachelorette former contestant Tyler Cameron,
who's extremely popular in the Bachelor Nation.
Yes, and on Hannah Brown's season. And they have like this bromance that TikTok has made famous.
They do a lot together. And
they have a charity. They have a charity organization together that helps the youth in New York City. Another history-making moment from just this first episode is that Matt gives his first rose to the first deaf contestant in Bachelor history, Abigail. So those are just a quick few notes about this. Delora, please give me your first impressions of The Bachelor and Mr. Matt James.
Oh, Ashley, that's such a loaded question. I just was not impressed. And then the fact that he gave a whole speech to Chris on reasons why he doesn't want to pick a Black girl, that just rubbed me the wrong way. You didn't have to have this conversation, but I don't know. Race must be an interesting thing for him, being biracial.
He was raised by a white mother,
which is important to bring up because I don't feel like he has a close relationship with his father. So that means there may be some level of rejection if I am keeping it 1,000.
Okay.
Rejection to the culture because he doesn't seem like he hangs out with anybody Black.
I do not follow him on social, but again, based on my research, that sounds valid to me.
So Ashley, I guess I'm going to sum up my impressions of him by saying, I don't know if this one is for the culture. And it's a quota for ABC, but it's not one for you and me.
For Black America.
Black America.
And while I agree with you that you could take it as him justifying why he may not inevitably end up with a Black woman at the end of his season, I still felt that it was a legitimate conversation to have because of his background, because I, coming into the show, was not aware that he was biracial. You know, that's always interesting to know and hear about people's stories. So when I heard him say, you know, it kept me up at night, not wanting to disappoint Black people, not wanting to disappoint white people. I don't know if he could possibly disappoint white people. So, okay, Matt. But
he was keeping it equal, I guess.
Yes. But again, for the sake of the show and finding out about him for that first episode, I thought it was valid to understand his background. He clearly is not Obama.
Nah, no,
that is important
which is
to note, because as we know, Obama was raised by a white mother and white family members, but still is Barack Obama. So,
but there's a level, because I'm also reading his book, Promised Land. He embraces the African American culture. He understands himself in that space. I don't know. I'm not seeing it from Matt, and that's where, I don't know if this is some defense mechanism from being disappointed, but I think it's going to be disappointing.
Okay. I think I am fully prepared.
Not for him to be happy, but just he's going to pick somebody named Sarah G. Like, I feel it.
I totally understand where you're coming from. I think a lot of Black women are going to possibly have a lot of emotional weight in what he does. I'm glad that he recognizes that, and at the same time, I don't put that weight on his decision whatsoever, because it's The Bachelor. I think if this were a franchise that I invested more heavily in, because to be honest with you, this is only the 3rd season of The Bachelor that I'm watching. I watched Peter's season. I just watched the Claire Tayshia season, and now I'm watching this season, and I'm only doing it because of work. I haven't mentioned on the podcast about working television, so some of this stuff I have to keep up with for the sake of my job.
A dream job, Ashley. A dream job.
Thank you. But I'm not that invested, but I will say all of what you're saying is absolutely valid. And let's get into these ladies as a part of this conversation. So what did you think about his Bachelor ladies?
I like to have a quick caveat. I really love Rachel Lindsay, who's the first Black Bachelorette. And she actually has the same sentiment. And she herself married, I believe he's a Dominican man, or he's from, he's a Latino man. And she said this is Brian. Yes. Yeah. And she said that honestly, the first time she ever dated outside of her race is when she was on The Bachelor. She was on The Bachelor, and then again during her time as the Bachelorette. But she mentioned that, although they chose a guy who probably isn't used to dating Black girls, that it's also the show's fault in their casting. Like they don't really necessarily choose. They're not used to choosing normal Black people. And I say normal Black people, I mean, like, just fully aware of our culture, fully
someone who has lived what we consider to be an authentic Black experience.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, not to say, I mean, again, Matt is a Black man. He is he's not a super fair skinned Black man. He's a Black man.
And honestly, that's another reason why you wouldn't necessarily, that's where colorism comes into play too. Like you would not have guessed that he was biracial based solely of his skin tone. But as we know, living in our country, there's just certain ways people treat you based off the color of your skin.
Absolutely. And maybe this journey that he's on to find love will also be a journey to a certain extent for himself in certain ways that he may not yet be aware of.
That's true.
Because to your point, and he's 28 years old. There may be things
he's never been in love.
Yeah, there may be things that he has not yet necessarily examined for himself that may come to light through this experience, and whatever that may look like for him, I wish him the best. But my question just a few minutes ago, I want to get back to about what you thought about this crop of females. I don't want to call them females. It sounds horrible. This crop of women, gorgeous women, because they were gorgeous. Absolutely. That showed up to vie for the love of Matt.
And to be honest, some of them, they all kind of look alike out after. After you watch it a little bit, it's like, okay.
I'm not going to be remembered any of their names. Girl. After a while.
My favorite, though, was the one young lady who said that she was biracial was mixed with like Black and, was it Filipino? Or
I think I know who you're talking about, who also said she was similar to him in like only being raised really by her mother. And I know who you're talking about. Also, I love the young lady from Ethiopia. She was one of my favorites. I'm like, ma'am, you came all the way from Ethiopia?
Right. Or the Black girl with the short hair, who's the model, the way she's shredded up.
I love the Black chick from North Carolina who brought the pickup truck. Loved her as well.
Yeah,
also love the girl with the Felicity hair from Ohio, the hairstylist. Loved her.
Wait. You. That was one of the things where I'm like, ooh, love the hair. Yes, hair, please. Yes, girl. Yes, she's super cute.
Couldn't stand Queen Victoria.
Girl, why is she there? And then
entertainment value.
And then the adult toy girl. Like, what are you doing, ma'am? The joke was dead after the initial shock value of it all.
She played it out. If she would have came and tapped on my shoulder with a potentially used dildo or vibrator, we would have had some words. The
girl that she tapped on her shoulder was cute. I don't remember her name. We don't remember no one.
No, it's too soon. For non-Bachelor fans who are listening, there were 32 women at the beginning of this episode.
How he made that decision, but honestly, I was telling David this. I was like, this is the easier part. It gets harder when you're down to 5. You know what I mean?
And you get so emotional. The ballerina, though, that hurt me because I thought she would have made the cut originally. That hurt my feelings. But otherwise, the first episode, I remember my thoughts being, to your point, I don't particularly like Matt as far as like attractiveness. I mean, he has a nice little body, but
he seems awkward.
Yeah, he's not. He wouldn't be. He's not someone I would necessarily go for. So
the way those girls were fawning over him, I'm just like, okay.
I mean, the prayer moment was endearing.
First of all,
absolutely was endearing.
The way I laughed out loud, Ashley, girl. I was like, you did not go on this show that you are going to be tonguing down at least 95% of these women, and you want to start off with a prayer?
He absolutely did, but I found it to be endearing because, again, in my 3 seasons of Bachelor Nation history, it was just a little different. I was like, okay, Matt, I guess you're on the same page Tasha was on. She said, you Christian or bust. If you're not a Christian, I can't deal with you.
Wait, the way she dropped that last dude, she was like, our religious beliefs in the line. I was like, whoo, yes, girl, I'm here for it, though.
Tasha's not playing.
We're about to raise kids. You got to be on the same page on certain things.
My last thoughts about The Bachelor. When I saw the group of women, I said, being a guy, women are beautiful. Beauty is not the baseline criteria because you have to actually get to know these women. All of them were beautiful, right? Like, it would be so hard.
Kind of like the show we're going to recap in a minute.
Exactly. It would be so hard to choose based off of things like that. So he has his picks. He has his pickings for sure. Loved Abigail. Loved that story. Loved that representation of that for her. And I will stick with it for a while to see what happens. Because as they show in the previews, and Chris Harrison is one of my favorite hosts. In terms of the drama.
He loves the messiness.
We're going to see Matt breaking down, and we're going to see some cat fights, and we're going to see all sorts of madness potentially in this season. So I'm here for it for a little bit.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like someone who has never been in love, do you think The Bachelor is the best show to go on?
No, because you are expected to get engaged after this endeavor. And how can you possibly be ready to get engaged and marry somebody when you don't even feel like you've ever truly been in love? So no, but the concept of The Bachelor in and of itself is in
ridiculous.
My opinion, you took the word out of my mouth.
Sorry.
Absurd. No, you're fine. It's absurd. So I cannot vouch for anybody who goes on there in terms of the success of their unions. But okay, Matt, if you want to go down this journey, I will stick with you for a little while, if only for the sake of my job.
And he did say that he felt the responsibility of being the first Black Bachelor.
Did. So. And I saw that he spoke out on what happened yesterday. So he is taking this platform.
Did he?
He did.
He does not seem like the type of person that would even comment on something like that.
I think Rachel has been a lifeline for him potentially in that regard because he spoke of talking to her before he signed up.
She's brilliant. That's why I loved her so much. Rachel is definitely a good person to be leaning on, so that's promising. Good job, Matt.
That's what I'm assuming based on things I've read. So if you're listening, Matt, if you're listening, Rachel, keep that friendship on lock. Delora, that is the end of our first 2 segments. I'm going to hand it over to you for our recap.
This week's recap is Bridgerton.
Yo.
Netflix original series, Shondaland's first scripted series.
Doing big things.
Rated MA. There are 8 episodes, approximately an hour per episode. Here's the summary. During the Regency era in England, 8 close-knit siblings of the powerful Bridgerton family attempt to find love. And then another summary says, wealth, lust, and betrayal set in the backdrop of Regency era England, seen through the eyes of the powerful Bridgerton family. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about this wonderful cast. So in the IMDb, they essentially went in alphabetical order. So first up, Jonathan Bailey as Anthony Bridgerton, Ruby Booker as Marina Thompson, Harriet Keynes as Philippa Featherington, Betsy Carter as Prudence Featherington, Nicola Colin as Penelope Featherington, Phoebe Dinavor as Daphne Bridgerton, Ruth Jamel as Lady Violet Bridgerton, Claudia Jessie as Eloise Bridgerton, Ben Miller, Lord Featherington, Luke Newton as Colin Bridgerton, Rege Jean Page as Simon Bassett, also known as Duke of Hastings, Luke Thomas as Benedict Bridgerton, Polly Walker as Portia Featherington, Julie Andrews, Lady Whistledown, Adoa as Lady Dunbury.
My girl,
everything. Also, the Queen has arrived. Golda Rossivol as Queen Charlotte, Martins Imhumbi as Will Modrich, and Catherine Drysdale as Genevieve Delacroix, and the creator, writer, director, producer, Chris Von Dusen. Ashley, Bridgerton, according to Rotten Tomatoes, 92%.
Oh, wow.
By critics.
Oh, wow.
For audience, they're at 87%. For Google users, 96%. What's your grade, Ashley? We're just going to go ahead and get to it. What's your grade?
Okay. I've spent time, as usual, evaluating my general criteria. And while I found Bridgerton to be lovely, lustful, fantastical, beautiful backdrop, scenery, music, all the things, it gets a B. And my B still means that I recommend this show to all of our dear, wonderful listeners out there. Okay. As I've mentioned many a time, I reserve my A students for those who move my soul in some way. Love Bridgerton, fantastical escapism, gets a B. What about you? Did you love that passion I put into it, by the way? Could you hear it in my voice?
Thank you so much, Ashley. I greatly appreciate that.
Well, you can see my face too. Our listeners can't.
Exactly.
I put a little oomph into it every now and again, guys.
Yes, Bridgerton for me gets a freaking A+. Okay,
we
love
know.
It. Oh my gosh, I have been singing to the mountaintops on how much I love this freaking show. Okay, Ashley, this is all before spoiler alert. Okay, so the way I love Bridgerton is I'm upset. I am upset that I binged it as fast as I did because Bridgerton for me was so decadent. It was so luxurious that I mean, when it was over, I was like, I have to watch it again because I consumed it too fast. Because it was so rich for me, you know?
Yeah.
The level of excitement that I have for the show actually resembles the type of excitement I used to have for Scandal. Like the early seasons of Scandal, I mean, fast talking, funny, quick-witted, sexy, like, I loved it so much that I had to rewatch it. Like I remember rewatching episodes of Scandal so I wouldn't forget anything, so I could be ready for the next week. Like that is how much this show, you know, that's how much I loved it. I loved it. I yes, I've watched it multiple times now because I just, like I said, I just took it in so much, so fast. The ways that the show has been described that I absolutely love is lavish, is vibrant, big, bold, steamy, fun, funny, and emotional. Rege describes it as a funnier, faster, wittier, and unashamedly sexier to its predecessor in the drama. And Ashley.
Yeah.
Enola Holmes walked for Bridgerton to run, okay? Because you know I love a period piece, right?
Yes.
Is this right here obviously is taking that genre and flipping it upside down, right? But the reason why I love period pieces, especially romantic ones, it's the restraint. It's the glances from across the room. It's the, you know, like, will they, won't they, you know, like, and then the kiss is typically the pinnacle of it all.
Yeah.
to quote Simon Bassett, okay?
Once we get into the recap, I have feelings about what you're saying, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I feel you so wholeheartedly. Yeah. We know you love Bridgerton, so is it fair to say, before you get into our spoiler alert, that this is your favorite show that we have yet to recap? Is that fair?
Ooh, that's really difficult because I have given multiple A+ ratings. So as of right now, probably.
Okay. Y'all hear that, listeners? If you have not yet watched Bridgerton, this is Laura's favorite. And she has loved many a show.
I do. And the last thing I want to say before we get into our spoiler alert, Netflix projected that 63 million households in 28 days have watched this show. It is Netflix. It ranks number 5 in their top 10 top 5 releases of all time.
Beating out our previous
Queen's Gambit. Yes. So I'm not the only one that's obsessed. Also, this is based off of well-known novels by Julia Quinn, and the season 1 is based off of the book The Duke and I. So, spoiler alert. The other reason why I love this show, this isn't a spoiler alert, but color applying, casting. One of the reasons why I love Rege, he's not just a pretty face. He said this, and this is swim-worthy on its own. It's perfectly possible to spotlight Black joy over Black suffering. Setting the story in the past doesn't mean that Black folks do nothing but suffer. We've always lived and laughed and loved and married and danced and lived the truest expressions of our lives through societal restrictions, just the same way as everyone else. Mm-hmm. So he's also quoted some other time, because I've been reading up on him quite a bit. I told David at one point, I'm in this YouTube rabbit hole or article rabbit hole, and if it wasn't for me having this podcast, I would look like an insane person. So I'm glad that this podcast has justified my obsession when it comes to like reading on actors and things like that.
One of the videos you sent me that was him and Phoebe being interviewed, he also mentioned the whole idea of I can be a human and I can be Black.
Yes.
That idea that our humanity is not equal to those of white people is something that needs to really be deconstructed on a very deep level, as we've seen. But I love that that's something that he really projects and is putting out there on his run of media for this.
Yes.
And it's talking about, we have always been rich and regal and all these things. And just to build off of what you already said his quote was. And can I also say, he seems like he could be Trevor Noah's cousin to me. Now that I've seen him doing interviews, I don't know why. I don't know if it's the African connection.
I mean, he's Zimbabwean and British, so they're both racial. Yes.
It seems like, you know, Trevor, check that genealogy, because I just feel like this is your long lost cousin.
I mean, yeah.
And they give me such a similar vibe too when I hear them
like
speak.
They seem very well read.
Yeah,
because Trevor Noah is brilliant, by the way. Like, he knows a lot of languages, and
and we'll be hosting the Grammys once they finally air. So
the last quote I want to leave you with before we get into episode 1, again, this is me talking about the colorblind casting, and you know, me being a person who loves period dramas and romance stories, like, you know, Pride and Prejudice and all those things. You never see yourself. So like he says here in Esquire, I think it's immensely important for people to be able to see themselves at their highest elevation, Paige says, to see that you are worthy of love, romance, glamour, and status. Everyone is worthy of all of those things, and it is our job in the creative industries to create an environment that reflects it. Everyone is worthy of finding love and enjoying escapist fantasies of a life of dancing, romance, and ambition.
Preach.
I just got
preach.
So anybody who has any issues with seeing Black people waltzing around in high society and drinking tea and eating crumpets, just take a couple seats. Let us enjoy just the fantasy of it all. Again, as a person who loved this genre for so many years, to see yourselves in Lady Danbury,
in the Queen
Charlotte. This was truly a joy. All right. Episode 1, Diamond of the First Water. Daphne debuts of London's marriage market as a new gossip sheet sets high society a Twitter, and Simon, the eligible Duke of Hastings, returns to town. One last comment thing. When Shonda lands, she has a new moniker. When you start the series, the old school ones was a roller coaster, and now it's just beautiful lights going out in circles. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm about to go on a ride. She always on a ride. So we're in 1813 Regency, London. First thing I noticed, bright, clean, budget. They spent money on this thing. Mm-hmm. We're in a society where women are used as pawns in society. So we see all the eligible ladies, married-minded misses, according to Lady Whistledown, are presented to the Queen. And it is just high anticipation, and everyone's getting ready to go. And the Bridgerton family are all together, getting ready for Daphne. Eloise famously screams up the stairs, like, you must make haste. We see the Featheringtons.
How very Shakespearean.
Yes. We see the Featheringtons, and they're definitely giving me evil stepsister vibes with their...
Cinderella. That's what I had going through my head.
And the Featheringtons goes first, and the 3 daughters barely make it out the door to see the Queen. The Queen, who is majestic, who is completely bothered because she doesn't have time for anyone or anything, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the Featherington sisters faint in front of her, which is the ultimate no-no. Then we have Daphne and her mother, Viscountess Bridgerton, presented. The music swells. The queen is impressed. And she tells her, flawless, my dear.
Kisses that girl on the forehead, okay? That's the queen.
Girl. Ashley, what are your thoughts at this point? This is such a grand opening, right?
Yeah.
Flawless, my dear. The expectations are high.
Very. My notes so far are, I feel like they really set it up early to be kind of this Featheringtons versus Bridgertons dynamic. Like that was immediately how I felt like, oh, we're going to be pitted against one another to a certain extent.
Like rivalry families or something.
Yeah, like family rivalry. I have in my notes, the queen is Black because I wasn't ready and I didn't know, but I was very excited to see it. I also have the highest stakes debutante ever to be introduced in front of the queen's gaze. The flawlessness of Daphne when she comes down there even impressed me as the audience. I was like, oh yeah, you were built and bred.
The way she walked down, shoulders back, yes.
She came out of that carriage like Cinderella for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, not yet really knowing any background of these characters. I was just immediately taken by and knew that she was the star of the show for the foreseeable future. So enjoyed it.
When I saw the actress, even though I had seen her in Younger, which I love that show, by the way.
Me too.
I've never seen that actress in like a period piece like this. And so when I saw her,
I didn't like her in Younger. So thank you for being Daphne.
I actually
you came in with some mess. You came in with some mess on Younger. We don't need that.
Thank you, Ashley. Exactly.
Of course.
But when I saw her, I was like, oh my goodness, this actress looked like she was plucked out of this century. Like you could tell, even though they went for a color, not necessarily colorblind, because we get to that later. But, you know, we live in a world where all types of people are dukes and duchesses and of, you know, title or whatnot. You can tell with Daphne, they decided to go for a more quote unquote traditional route when it comes to, you know, the European status of beauty, especially at that time. So she was giving me, you know, 18th century realness for sure. Mrs. Whistledown is introduced by and read by the wonderful Julie Andrews. Okay.
I noticed it the second time because remember you told me that. I was like, oh, that was Julie Andrews. And then it was so glaring to me when I watched the show the second time. I was like, of course, that's freaking Julie Andrews. Honor, legend.
So one of the favorite quotes, and obviously this is us being introduced to her, the quote of all the bitches, dead or alive, a scribbling woman is the most canine. If that should be true, then this author would like to show you her teeth. Loved it. I was like, oh, so Whistledown is coming with the tea.
She coming in hot.
Names and everything. Okay.
And let's be clear that her column is debuting the same day as these daughters, these Featherington daughters and Daphne Bridgerton. So that sets it up
season.
As who is this and what are their motivations for doing this now? So
exactly. That's an excellent question. Why now? But yes, and for historical context, social season is definitely a thing. And I didn't know about that. So I thought that was very interesting. So we are also introduced to Lady Danbury just briefly in her all red. I had in my notes, yes.
I just have Lady Danbury was my girl. She just struck you immediately. She's so regal. Everything is on point. The way she speaks, the way she carries herself, her wardrobe, everything. I was just, I was impressed. She was immaculate.
Amazing. So Lady Whistledown called Daphne the diamond of the first water. And of course, Daphne and her mother are rejoicing. And I love how Eloise brings them back down to earth and say, 200 young ladies now have a common adversary.
Yes.
And one quick thing that I thought was interesting, and I guess everyone who loves the books knows this, but Lady Whistledown is not here for the Bridgertons all being named in alphabetical order. I thought that was hilarious. Lady Featherington is not impressed with Lady Whistledown at all. And she's just like, did the Bridgertons write this themselves? And in this same moment, we are introduced to a quote unquote distant cousin. And it's...
Can I go back just real quick? Penelope wanted to sit out the season. Penelope Featherington mentioned she wanted to sit out the season.
She did. She wanted to be like Eloise because they are best friends and of the same age. And her mom was like, absolutely not. You will be presented. But the mom didn't know that she was going to have an extra young lady on her hands. Mm-hmm. And that is when Marina Thompson is introduced. Change of scene. The Duke has come to town. Simon Bassett, first of all, he made such an appearance on that horse, right? Like with I loved his costumes and the colors, the darkness, but then the vibrancy of the dark, rich colors of his costumes. Absolutely loved it. So we meet Simon, and he's talking with Lady Danbury, and she is the first to acknowledge him with his new title as Duke of Hastings. And this is due to the death of his father.
Mm-hmm. I have in my notes on this because of these introductions. Black folks came on the scene and made some noise. You have the Queen, the Duke, Marina, like everybody who came and popped up. It was like, oh shit, I'm impressed.
That's very true. Very, very true. Oh my goodness. And I want to talk really quickly about Anthony. The first time we meet him, he's having a little bit of a rendezvous on a tree. And we find out that it's with the opera singer of the town. And they have a very intense relationship. That I'll just keep it at that.
I have in my notes the physicality of Anthony and his girl sex scenes. Sheesh.
Girl, it's a lot. It's a lot. And of course, in the interaction between Simon and Lady Danbury, she's putting on a ball, the first of this social season. And so we are immediately immersed in this ball with a beautiful rendition of Thank You Next, playing in the background.
On the violin. I have my notes. I died.
I was like, yeah. Okay, there's going to be a lot of yeses. I'm just preparing our audience. Just, it is what it is, okay?
The music as a whole, in totality, was phenomenal. I think it really set the tone for, even though we're in this era of, 19th century, it's a modern take, right? And so to have Thank You Next from Ariana Grande playing on violin come through, Shonda. Shawn Mendes,
who's Boo.
Yes, loved it.
Taylor Swift. I mean, they even did Maroon 5, which, huge fan of theirs. I want to take a moment to talk about the composer of this series. Part of the reason why I love this show so much, obviously, for the sets and costumes, but the music plays a huge role, especially when it comes to romance.
Always.
And I am obsessed with this song called Let's Form an Attachment. Like that, I'll talk about it more once we get to that scene. But I took the time to look up, like, who's this composer? And I'm not going to lie, I expected to see a middle-aged white man. What I found, Ashley,
mm-hmm.
was a 30-year-old Black man named Kevin Bowser. Okay,
Kevin.
And it actually brought me to tears because one, I was a huge band person. I love classical music. And to just see the range of a young man to do something so vibrant and so beautiful, but yet so classic, I just was like, I can't deal. I'm sorry. His name is Chris Bowser. So forgive me.
Come through, Chris.
I should have wrote it down. I was depending on my phone, but I was so blown away, and it just warmed my heart. So Black folks in front and behind the camera. So let go.
And nice of you to acknowledge it too. We talk a lot when we're doing our recaps on the creators, writers, producers, all of that. But obviously it takes a whole team to make these shows as wonderful as they are. So.
And Ashley, they recorded separately in quarantine. So all of this came together by the power of technology, like his expertise, of course, but that it's phenomenal. He deserves an Emmy. He already has one, but he deserves another one. Again, done so much at such a young age. Okay. So we're at the Dunbury Ball, and we see that that Penelope has eyes for Colin, worth noting. And this is where it gets kind of juicy, Ashley, okay? The Bridgertons arrived, and Anthony, it's good to point at this time, their father is no longer with them. He actually died at a relatively young age due to a bee sting. So you'll see a bee throughout the story. I think it'll probably mean more in future seasons, but in the book it's
I didn't even catch how he passed away, so thank you.
I got that from reading up on the show and the novel.
Okay.
So
from
the
a
bee was always
sting.
there.
Oh, that reminds me of what was the movie back in the day with Macaulay Culkin? Yes. Damn it.
So the man of the house is the firstborn, the Viscount, Anthony Bridgerton. So he's taken on a bit of a responsibility with Daphne and presenting her for these balls. And at first glance, it appears that he's being, just looking out for his little sister. But over time, it appears that he's a bit of a cock block, Ashley.
Yeah. Major.
What do you think his motivations were? Because to me, it was just kind of unclear. Like, sir, what are you doing? You're scaring off all eligible suitors at this point.
I think he didn't know what he was doing, and he wasn't prepared for the responsibility he was taking on. That's what I think. And that's based on multiple conversations that he ends up having with his mother, especially. He was way too overprotective. I have in my notes, even by the era standards. The judgment and shade with which he was dismissing all of the guys
left
who were
and right
looking at Daphne at that ball. Right. Yeah. And especially because, in my opinion, Anthony is a fuckboy.
Wow.
So of all people to try to come and have such high standards, like, I wasn't here for it. It'd be different if he had higher standards for himself. And that's another factor, in my opinion, is he was very immature in his own dealings. I'm just saying. He was very immature in his own dealings with love and relationships. So I'm not surprised, but I needed him to step up out of Daphne's way real quick.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for that, Ashley. Okay. Okay. So Daphne manages to step away from her brother to get something to drink because she's obviously overwhelmed by she hadn't got a chance to dance at all because, again, her brother is just knocking them all down. And she bumps into Lord Burbrook.
Gross. First
of all, I actually put that down. I was like, he is creepy AF.
Yeah, I have gross.
And her brother had the nerve to say that he's a decent choice.
He was a vulture of a human being.
Wait, when he said that I've always had an eye for you, she's like, when I was 5? Like, and so in efforts for her to, get out of that awkward situation, she was very adamant at getting away. So she's, politely walked away. And in that moment, she bumps into the Duke of Hastings.
He has all these women swooning around him initially.
literally swarming like bees.
Yeah.
He couldn't swat them off. Like, they were on him heavy. And so at this point of the evening, she bumps into him. They say their pleasantries like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And she tries to strike up a conversation with him because she's trying to get away from Lord Burbrook. And so she asks him his name. And he's just like, "Sis, what?
As
you
if
don't
you
know
don't
me?
know. As
You
if you
don't
don't
know
already
me?"
know. Again, because he's had these other women swooning all around him, he assumes in his arrogance that all these women who are here must know who I am. They're all after me.
And you find out who he is through Daphne's older brother, because this is one of his best friends from Oxford. And so that immediately turns her off.
And which brother is that, to be specific, Dolores? Which brother?
Anthony.
Lord Jesus.
And she's like, "If you're best friends with my brother, I know the company that he keeps, and I don't want none of it."
Exactly.
"I don't want it," to quote Jon Snow. Okay. And so she immediately, got defensive and like, "Okay, well, sorry, have a great evening.
I ain't about you." Can we talk about that literal dance card women were wearing around their wrists? I have one of those. Wow.
Very interesting. Exactly. Like, they're keeping track of all the people they're dancing with, right?
It's ridiculous.
I was surprised by that as well. Daphne wants to stay longer because at this point she hadn't had the opportunity to dance with no one. But her brother is convinced that she should leave. She should leave them wanting more. After each ball, it's good to know that there's times for callers or the male suitors from the dance to come and spend more time with the ladies. And she's not getting anybody.
This was the exaggeration of sitting by the phone waiting on a man to call you.
Well said.
This was too much for me. I got to sit in the drawing room of my house and wait for men to want to come around and call upon me to have a conversation?
Yes.
My God.
What a time. What a time, right?
Oh my gosh. As Daphne later said, if I'm not able to find a husband, I'll be worthless. Thank God this era has passed, Delora, or has it?
Girl, I don't even know. But guess whose house is full of callers? The Featheringtons with their
Marina is that thing. Marina is that thing.
She's a new girl on the block. Everybody wants to know who that chick over there, who that is.
And the melanin don't hurt, honey.
Oh my goodness, curls were popping. Okay, curls were constantly popping. And like you mentioned, Daphne had to have a one-on-one with her brother and be like, "Hey, I need for you to understand I have a duty as well, and you're not allowing me to do what I need to do." And still, she was, affected by people not wanting to, come by. But guess who was available? Lord Burbrook.
Ugh.
So much so that he becomes her number one suitor.
Horrifyingly so.
In this social season, there's balls and then there's operas, and Lady Dunbury and Lady Bridgerton conspire. They have two young people on their hands, and they would be an excellent match. I mean, the Diamond of First Water and the Duke, the now eligible young Duke, match made in heaven. They do a quick scene, which the first time I watched this, I'm like, what is happening? Marina is really upset in her bed, Ashley.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, because it's a different era, so you don't realize that what she is upset about is she has not had her period, because the way they find out that they're bleeding is on the sheets.
On the sheets. And so she had already been at the house for over a month, and she has not gotten her courses.
Her courses, as they call it, a period.
Yes. We have the Duke and Daphne interacting yet again. They don't like each other. at all. Like,
it was sexual tension. It was sexual tension.
I don't think they knew that at that time, to be honest.
I disagree, Delora, and let me say why.
Okay.
In the first scene when they meet, even when they have their little tensious little exchanges, when she's leaving, he's looking at her, and when she's leaving, she looks back. Oh, that's sexual tension right there.
Well, here's the deal. He, and I'm not revealing anything just yet. He knows that she's not an ugly girl. That doesn't mean he wants anything to do with her. Like,
that don't mean it wasn't sexual tension. You have to like somebody to want to bang.
Touche.
He's a rake. He's a rake, as they say many times.
First of all, it took me forever to really get it. I'm like, so are they calling him a hoe? Like,
yeah, same. I literally wrote, does a rake mean hoe? Yes, it does.
It
does. She was flat out calling this man a hoe. She's like, listen, you're a hoe. I know how you do. You a hoe.
But yes, the Duke is over to dinner because, the Bridgerton's cook is known for their gooseberry pie.
Which is his favorite.
And Anthony told his mother about herself. Like, how dare you try to set my best friend up with my sister? And Mama's like, don't come talking to me about duty, son, when you got a chick on the other side of town. What did you think about this interaction?
You've said this so many times. In this scene, his mother multiple times in this show reads him for filth, as you like to say. He tried to tell his mother she overstepped in her daughter's love life. I said, boy, who are you talking to? I don't give a fuck if you think you're the head of this household or not. You better have a seat, son. You're still my child.
Have several seats.
Ooh, Anthony. Ooh. Mm-mm.
Is it Anthony or Anthony?
They said Anthony in the show.
Did they?
They said
okay.
Anthony.
I'll just go with Anthony moving forward. Apparently this conversation got to him because he breaks it off with the opera singer.
I promised that girl the world, apparently.
Yes.
How he was gonna take care of her, and then you just go up and decide that's not what we doing?
We can't see each other no more. No more.
What am I supposed to do? I'm a woman of this era. I'm reliant on a man to a certain extent to live a certain lifestyle.
And she's not in the high society, so she knows her place, but she also didn't expect to be left high and dry either. So yeah. So my favorite ball, Ashley, is here. It's the soiree at Vex Hall. Okay. Marina's not there because of her quote unquote condition, but the Featheringtons are there. With
which you haven't said is obvious, but she's pregnant. If you didn't get that, if you guys didn't get that from our earlier discussion about her period,
they refer to it as condition, Ashley.
That was catching. Remember, it was catching.
Ashley, we got to talk about this a little bit more later. I promise.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm being very detailed for this first episode is because this lays the groundwork to more freer conversations later on, okay?
Okay.
We are introduced to Ms. Cowper, who is apparently a bitch. She spills her drink on Penelope. Again, the mommies are swarming the Duke. First of all, can we talk about how gorgeous this whole episode was, especially at this ball? There was like this gorgeous lighting of like the light bulbs overhead in the middle of the
dance floor
estate. It was gorgeous. Anthony informs Daphne that he has made preparations for her to marry Lord Burbrook.
Crazy.
And she was like, I will not hear of this. Okay. Mm-mm. They do go back to Marina at this point, and she is confronted by Mrs. Featherington or Lady Featherington about being quote unquote reckless because she obviously is pregnant. And she basically was like, I didn't ask to be here. And then she got a slap across the face there. That's worth noting. Woof. Back to the soiree, Lord Burbrook attacks Daphne, and the Duke is there because he had to find a quiet space to get away from the mommies, and he runs to help her, but she comes at Lord Burbrook with the right hook.
Mm-hmm.
I did love how she saved herself. She didn't need saving.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But of course, in that time, a young lady cannot be by herself. She has to, she has to be mindful of, the company that she keeps and who touches her and everything like that. And she's currently in the garden by herself with 2 men. So she's just crying about, oh my goodness, I'm ruined. And then Simon had a great idea. He was like, let's pretend to make an attachment. You are going to be considered desirable by all the suitors because you have my attention, and all the mommies are going to leave me alone. And this is my favorite part of the whole series. The music, when they step out for the first time as an item, and he's like, and the music and the fireworks, and the first person they saw, though, by the way, when they came out of the garden, Penelope. It's just important to know. And the fireworks and the dancing scheme and everything like that was absolutely, it was just gorgeous. Luxurious. It was just the ultimate fantasy. And he was like, I need for you to look deep into my eyes and look manly in love. I'm like, sir, I don't think that'll be a problem for most women.
The swooning had already begun.
Girl. And like I was asking earlier, what are Anthony's motivations for dropping this ball on Daphne? Like Lord Birdbrook, like he can see that this man isn't attractive. The fact that he's not unable to see that this man is creepy AF is beyond me. Like, oh, he has, his background's work. Like, really, sir?
He had no idea what he was doing. That's just, again, what it comes down to for me. He was overconfident and underqualified to be the head of his family's household.
That's very true. And also, the reason why Simon and Daphne make this attachment is because they want to get Lady Whistledown off their backs. She has been talking quite a bit about them. Daphne was getting some heat saying for this woman to be it, she ain't getting nobody knocking on her door. Was this a flaw by the queen? And the queen was not having that either.
No.
And, the Duke being literally the best catch of the season, they wanted to get people talking, and they wanted to control their narrative.
Yeah. And then also Simon is a part on his side. His reasoning is he has already declared he doesn't want to get married.
Thank you, Ashley. One of the most important topics of this particular show. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go into episode 2, and then we're going to talk in more general terms, because I think this first episode was so pivotal to the foundation of the whole show. And we essentially see all the tangled webs that are woven from these families and interesting characters. Okay, so episode 2, Shock and Delight. Simon's apparent courtship of Daphne angers her brother Anthony and threatens to ruin the arrangements he made. Marina opens up to a curious Penelope. So I will say one of the things I love about this episode was a flashback, and we see Simon's interaction with his father. His father was an overbearing man who took great pride in his title, his dukedom.
Which a part of that, the only part of that I gave him grace on was the racial aspect of it. When he talks about, to a certain extent, one of the reasons why was because being Black people in the society, it could so easily be taken away from them. And I'm sure we'll get to that later on too, when he gives more of a speech. But that was the one piece of grace, because otherwise his father was a monster.
His father was an absolute monster. The fact that this man was screaming at this woman giving birth, talking about, tell me, when is my son gonna get here? I was like, what? And then we are introduced to how Lady Danbury is in Simon's life. She is his mother's best friend.
And his mother dies tragically.
And his mother dies. And one of the things that I think that is interesting and worth noting is that his mother never got a chance to hold him.
Taken by his father immediately.
Taken by his father immediately. Let's talk more about this because we get multiple flashbacks throughout this episode, and we learn really quickly that Simon has a stutter as a kid.
Yeah.
And his father views it as incompetence. Mm-hmm. And he goes as far to say that his own son, the one heir that he was working on so hard, is dead to him because he's an imbecile. Ashley.
Heartbreaking.
I couldn't even take it. And we get another flashback of him growing older. Lady Danbury catches up to him, and I'll say he's somewhere around 5 to 7 years old. And
that's fair.
He's very ashamed of his condition, right? To the point where he doesn't want to talk. And honestly, this is one of the 3 favorite speeches I have in the whole story, when he's stuttering and he's like, I can't speak. And she was like, son, you can speak. And I'm like, don't you need somebody in your life to speak life into you?
Mm-hmm. Her whole spiel in that moment where she talks of helping him through this and talks about her own insecurity she had when she was growing up and how she became the fiercest person in the room and all these things, gives you insight into the development of this Black woman in the society as well. Absolutely. And I live for the scene. Again, Lady Danbury is my girl.
And I'm gonna go ahead. It deserves to be quoted. She said, I made myself frightening. I sharpened my wit, my wardrobe, and my eye, and I made myself the most terrifying creature in any room I entered. And when she told him this, she's like, you can speak. And then she's like, you must promise me that when you step into the light, you will be worth the attention you command.
2 snaps.
Girl, I just was like, again, you need somebody in your life to just speak life into you. And guess what? The way they walked into that ball.
Yes, such swag.
I was just like, we have arrived. We have arrived.
And you then start to, at least I did, start to see too that Simon had to create a bit of a facade for himself, right?
As a way
that
to protect
arrogance,
himself.
Arrogance that you assume from episode 1 when he was dealing with Daphne and some of the women and stuff. It's armor. It's a shield.
Yes, very true. And you see that too because, there are moments throughout this show where his stutter comes back and you get that level of vulnerability where it's like, oh, you struck him in the heart. Okay. Yeah. Like you have affected him. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Can I say this also made me think of Joe Biden? Because I know that he had to overcome a stutter.
Yes.
This made this in my mind right now because politics are so prominent. I immediately thought of Joe Biden and possibly what some of his struggles were when he was growing up. But
absolutely. And so those were the flashbacks. And I'll talk a couple of more flashbacks later on. But moving back to present day, everybody is loving this match between Simon and Daphne. Lady Dunbury and the Countess are gleeful about this new couple. And I love during this moment, Simon and Daphne themselves are just going back and forth on ways they're going to keep up this facade. They're going back and forth with like how many balls we're going to. I need for you to buy me expensive flowers for this to look real. And
it's so that first conversation of any show or movie I've ever seen where there's an arrangement, like even To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Yes.
That first conversation of like, here's our contract, here's what we will and will not do.
Yes, like putting it all on paper so we know exactly what we're doing. And one of the things that is also interesting is, again, back to Marina's condition, we realize the young women in this period has no idea where babies come from, Ashley. what did you think about that? I guess I love period pieces, but I don't think I've ever really noticed this being a topic of conversation.
I think I found it interesting because, to your point, I had never really seen it to this extent either, of the not just innocence, but ignorance to not be prepared for the most basic parts of life. And I think that it reminded me of how fortunate I feel to be a woman who is alive in this era, not only because of the rights and privileges that I have, but because of the knowledge I'm able to acquire outside of anything someone needs to tell me.
Yes.
I should not have to rely on my mom to be the one to tell me how people make babies. Like when Eloise comes in and says, but she's the servant from the Featherington house is not even married. I thought you had to be married
for that to happen. And the fact that they thought it was contagious, girl, that is the thing that I just was like, and the mother didn't say anything. Like, they kept her separate from the girls. But again, maybe that separation was, they didn't want them talking, right? Like, we don't want you.
It also showed again such a stark difference between men and women in society at that time. Yes. Because men got to live their lives and do their things and be rakes and sow their oats. And women didn't even know how to make a baby, how a baby was made. Come on.
That was insane. And, but yeah, Penelope and Eloise are they're confiding with one another. Like, oh my goodness, how does this happen? You must find out. I need to know. And so
I love their friendship. It's one of the highlights of the series for me. Yeah,
absolutely. Anthony finds out about this arrangement, this courtship between the Duke of Hastings and his sister. And he's just like, what are you doing? He's like, I have acted in your interests, dear sister. And my question to him is, have you, sir?
Not at all.
Have you?
Not remotely.
And the mom is completely sold on the Duke. She was like, who needs a Laura Burbrook when you got a Duke? And so the mom was like, you know what? It's good. We're fine. And we also in this episode get a chance to see Simon's relationship with the boxer Will.
Yeah.
I really appreciate their friendship and camaraderie. I felt like Will was always willing to tell the Duke about himself. What did you? And he's also very big on Black Twitter, by the way. Will.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yes. Everybody wants to know what is his name.
I was here for the friendship. I appreciated it. I respected it. I respected the dynamic. I respected the fact that even though Simon is in this position, you could still see that he had not lost touch with his roots probably and being a more normal person. And again, it just gives me extra insight into who he really is, right? Because again,
that's very true.
We're seeing layers of him. So to see a friendship outside of whatever his little friendship was with Anthony, because that felt more like, it wasn't as real, it wasn't as solid as his friendship with Will by comparison. It seemed like him and Will probably had a deeper understanding of one another than he and Anthony did, which it seemed like him and Anthony may have been party pals, may have gone out and slayed some women.
Exactly.
You ain't my bestie.
But with heirs, right? Like everyone knowing their position in society and everything like
rolling
that.
Rolling around. Simon had a little strut. Had a little neck roll,
That he did. Oh my God, I noticed that too. And in this boxing scene, Anthony confronts the Duke about messing up his plans face to face. And he's like, I already had her promised. And so the Duke is like, well, you know what? My intentions with your sister is honorable. And we are now with Penelope and Marina. And Penelope is just frankly asking Marina, how are babies made? And I loved her answer. She was like, with cake. Oh, that made me laugh so much. It's like, how did it happen? Cake. Apparently her lover is off to war, but again, she wasn't married.
The War of 1812. I had to look that up.
Yes. And, she basically is just completely in love with him, and she told Penelope that they were in love, but she did not give any details. That's worth noting. We also have shots of the Queen. She is in everybody's business, and she wants to know about proposals. And I want to take this moment to talk about, to give some context about Queen Charlotte in real life. So she was married to King George III. This is the same King George from the beloved musical Hamilton. He is also the same King George that went mad. So I thought it was very interesting every time we see the Queen and someone tells her about her husband, she's always asking, is he dead yet? And I'm just like, what is going on here? And so to see that, this was the mad King George, and she was just like, when is this going to be over? He did go mad. They're not exactly sure they have a disease in mind, but they also mentioned that the arsenic that was in makeup and medicine at the time could have led to his madness. And
I got the impression that it was like Alzheimer's or dementia based on how they portrayed it in the show.
The show kind of leaned it in that way. Mm-hmm. But she lived to be 74 years old, and she had 15 children. Jesus. 13 of them lived to be adults, and this is real life context. And then lastly, or two things. There has been evidence to support that she really did have African heritage, and that in some portraits, they cover up any color that she may have and essentially whitewashed her, whereas there are other paintings that actually showed her with her quote unquote African features with full lips and a wide nose. And the last thing I was going to mention is that she actually is German, and she didn't speak a lick of English until she got married. And they married based off of arrangement. They had never met, her and King George. But apparently it was a good match because they had 15 children.
Crossing my legs on that.
Girl. So because there aren't as many proposals going on as much as she wanted to be, she invited Lady Bridgerton for tea. And this was one of my favorite moments of the show. I love the cleverness of it. So basically, first of all, why was the Queen snorting coke?
Girl, I had that. I said, did the Queen really just snort drugs? Okay.
Like in front of guests.
Yeah. And asked for more.
And asked for more. And then they also talk, I'm sorry, one last thing I'm going to say. She was a patronage of the arts. She handpicked Bach and Mozart. So that was something that really happened in real life. Yeah.
Can I say I related so heavy on her? I don't know if I can't remember exactly when she talks about she just wants to be entertained. I'm like, yes, I live to be entertained. Queen Charlotte is me. I'm here for it.
Yes.
That isn't entertaining. Get that out of here. That doesn't entertain me. I'm with you.
The chick had heels on, though, upside down. That could have poked out an eye, and she was not entertained with that.
She was not. But she probably came she probably came once a week. I'm ready for something new. I'm bored.
So, in a very clever way, the Queen essentially told Lady Bridgerton that you need to get I understand that your daughter is attached to Lord Berbrooke, but the Duke is a better match. And there are ways around this agreement. And essentially, she was saying use the help. And so,
in a very subtle way, it was so clever. It was so clever,
and I loved it so much. Luckily, Lady Bridgerton was not completely naive, and she invited Lord Berbrooke's mom for tea with her and Daphne.
Explained it all.
And during this time, the help started talking, and they got the tea that they needed, and they found out that Lord Berbrooke was shady, like we all thought he was.
Mm-hmm. Did you mention that Simon had to beat his ass?
Oh, excellent point, Ashley. Thank you for that.
He was persistent.
Yes, because he was extremely persistent. He was upset that he didn't like Daphne and the Duke hanging out, and he was willing to concede because during one of the balls, Simon told Anthony what happened in the garden. And Anthony said, any agreement we had is now out the window. And so during a midnight stroll, Lord Burbrook followed Simon and he questioned Daphne's honor, and the Duke didn't like it. But it wasn't until he started talking about his daddy. Oh, yeah. When he got his behind beat.
Tried it. And again, Simon boxes. So you're barking up the wrong tree. Can I quote real quick when he said, when I'm buying a horse, I do not negotiate with the horse. He was a horrible person. He saw Daphne as property.
He did.
Solely as property.
He compared her to a horse. And again, I put in my notes and read, it's like, but when you start talking about his daddy, he was like, what you're not gonna do?
Exactly.
What you're not gonna do is talk about this man. You can get it. And he obviously got it.
His ass.
And again, he was speaking of his persistence during one of the promenade moments. He doubled down on talking about he's going to marry Daphne. And that's when the Bridgertons felt like they were in a corner. And then there was the queen with the tea with the queen. And then there was the dirt that was gathered from the tea with Lady Burbrook.
And what was that dirt, Delora?
He got a servant pregnant and sent her away.
Had a whole baby,
and didn't even want to see her. Sent her away. And the news got through the help circuit and it got to Lady Whistledown, and she published that mess, and he had to be sent away, or he went away for business. Mm-hmm. And so Daphne was now free, finally, from that awful arrangement by her brother. The last thing I want to mention is the dance with Simon and Daphne. This is after Lord Burbrook was no longer in her sights. She told Simon that my life is on the line. This is not some ruse for some publication. This is now you and me. This is now my life, and I need for you to help me to make sure I'm living my best life, essentially. And in this moment, there was a breakthrough, Ashley. He said, well, sure, I'll help you. And he's like, call me by my name. Call me Simon.
Things are heating up.
I melted.
Sexual tension is a building.
And in this dance, Ashley, when they were done, Daphne goes on to dance with another suitor, and he goes to stand next to Lady Danbury, and she's like, is something the matter? And he stutters for the first time, and he was like, no. And I was like, oh my goodness, Daphne's getting to him. And I say this because we are then flashback one last time between an adult Simon and his father, who is on his deathbed. Yes. And this mofo had the nerve to say, my son, you are now going to continue on the Hastings line. And in my mind, I was like, my son, you had nothing to do with his development.
At all. You provided sperm. That was it.
He told people his son was dead.
He was a monster.
And during his father's last breath, Simon vowed that he would never marry, he would never sire an heir, and the Hastings line will die with him.
Explained a lot.
Explain why he vowed never to get married. Explain, like, essentially him being a loner. You know what I mean?
Yes. Because his father dying is the only reason he's back in town at the moment.
Very true.
Settle those affairs of the Hastings house.
And it's something worth mentioning that during this time, your word was your bond more so than anything ever before. And so when you made a vow in those times, you made a vow. So for him, he was resolute in what he told his father, and there was no breaking it, including some cute little girl from a family that he knows around the block. He went off. He's like, are my words clear enough? Speak up, you effing monster, speak. It was giving me real villain vibes during that time too, like the whole scene.
I just saw it as the inevitability of his father's actions. You can't treat a child like that. You can't treat a person like that. And
I don't even think Simon was hugged with any real love and compassion in his life. Like, if you really think about it, like his own mama didn't get a chance to hug and kiss him before she died.
Besides possibly whatever he was able to get from living and being with Lady Danbury. I mean, she became his surrogate mother. And
but
his only living parent,
though, right?
It is.
Like,
his only living parent absolutely rejected him and spoke to him so horribly as a child. And the things that happen to you as a child impact the entirety of your life. That's what therapy is for. And unfortunately, there were no therapists, it doesn't look like, back in 1813. So Simon, I understand why you felt the need to make that vow and why you felt the need to say what you said. I wasn't mad. I did not blame him. And his father, I hope, died thinking that was absolutely true.
Well, if you also think about it, it's so
as horrible
dangerous
as that sounds.
Because he is willing to put vengeance over finding any type of love in this life.
That is very true, Delora, and we'll speak on that for sure, I'm sure, a little bit later. But at this point in time, I cannot blame Simon. I can only see what has happened thus far. Do I want Simon to find happiness? Yes, but everybody doesn't find happiness in marriage and children. So
no, that's very true. That's very true.
Maybe that was not going to be
very basic
Simon's
way
path.
of thinking about things. Yeah, because those things also take a lot of work. I don't know how the Bridgertons were able to have eight kids. That's in a loving family. That's a miracle. All right, Ashley, episode 3, The Art of the Swoon. After Daphne catches the eye of a royal suitor, she turns to Simon for relationship advice. Lady Featherington tries to browbeat Marina into marriage. So at this point in the story, Daphne and Simon's ruse is working splendidly because she has rejected 3 proposals.
Get it, girl. In 1 week.
In 1 week. But things are happening between her and him. She's having dreams about the Duke, Ashley. I mean, I guess I would be dreaming about him too if I was in her.
She was watching that spoon licking real hard for somebody who don't know nothing about no birds and no bees.
No, nothing. And she's like,
she's getting them feelings.
I volunteer to be the spoon. Me.
I volunteer as tribute.
That was definitely my motivation for sure, Ashley. Oh my God. I love
Hunger Games, guys. We are representing Hunger Games almost every episode.
And in the midst of all the things going on, a prince is coming to town
from Prussia.
We also see that Penelope is essentially Marina. What is her name?
It's Marina.
During this time, we find that Penelope has been Marina's #1 supporter, and she is intercepting the mail for a coveted letter from her love off at war. What do you think about the relationship at this point, Ashley?
With Marina and Penelope?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a love triangle forming because you saw that the Bridgerton that Penelope was interested in seemingly is interested, in Marina. So I was like, "Aw, Y'all are going to end up getting into it over a man. It's building.
It's building. I actually, the first time I saw this, it's not that I didn't catch it, but I didn't realize he was showing interest to Marina in episode 1, because he was asking about her at the ball.
Yeah, I have it in my notes from episode 1. Yeah.
Yes. So, and I do too. But at this point, I was just mainly looking at I wonder how Penelope is going to try to get Colin. You know what I mean?
I think based on what I had seen from Penelope at this point, with her wanting to sit out and her friendship with Eloise, I was under the assumption that she wasn't going to go down a traditional route and path. So that was one of the things that gave me pause about the intentions with Colin. Like, I'm like, yeah, you may have a crush on him, but I don't know how serious you are about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, is that just a friend you think is a little cute? I wasn't 100% sure. I wasn't sure if she was marriage minded, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a great point. Well, at this point, Daphne suitors is the main point of conversation among the Bridgertons, among society, and we get a chance to see her interacting with more dudes at this new ball. And I love the introduction of this ball, because guess what song is playing? Bad Guy. Again, screamed. I was like, this is amazing. But during this time, also Daphne and Simon's banter has gotten super cute at this point. I just love their back and forth, because there's a level of familiarity between the two of them and comfort, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so cute. So she, essentially is referring to him to her general, and he sent her off to dance with other suitors, and these other suitors are duds, Ashley. Like,
one guy didn't even have a mind of his own. She would ask him a question. That's a great question.
Clueless. I literally put clueless and mommy issues, or just awkward. Like, it's like, oh my goodness, how are people supposed to make quote unquote love matches over awful conversation like this? Oh,
was not to be a love match. Was not to be with any of those guys.
But then comes in the queen and that wig, honey.
She
showed up with an afro, and there was a fisted picking. I'm convinced it was.
I literally have that fro the queen had come through.
Everything. That fro was everything. Okay. And on her arm is her nephew, the Prince of Persia. Okay. And again, back
Prussia. It's Prussia.
Prussia. Thank you.
Of course.
And again, Simon and Daphne's banter is too adorable, because they're calling play by play what is exactly going on. And like most of those conversations at those balls, nothing much is being said, just the same thing over and over again. So Miss Cowper is like laying it on thick on this prince with this fan.
Cressida.
And Daphne knew exactly what she was doing. And then Simon told her that he's probably telling her that her dress is exquisite. And so lo and behold, the queen introduced the prince to Miss Bridgerton, and he said the exact same thing. And I thought that was so funny. And she laughs and snorts, which I thought was adorable, because I myself am a snorter. So
me too, I can too, but especially because Daphne in every other way is so refined.
Yes, that's very true. But she was letting her guard down, because the relationship between her and Simon have become so familiar, and the queen, her face, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And the prince is like, oh, no worries. And the queen is like, yes, you should apologize, and we need to go. Like, she just presented the diamond of the season, and here she is snorting all over the place. Hilarious.
Very.
So we get a glimpse of the working ladies of the town, or the ton, and it's the opera singer and the seamstress, or the modiste. And Ashley, I have to say, it took me watching this show 3 times to get that the modiste was speaking English in this interaction with a girlfriend, and that French accent disappeared into thin air.
I didn't even catch that. I didn't even
either.
Catch that.
Again, the third time was the charm for me. Okay, because again, first watch, binge, second watch, trying to gather all the things that I missed from the first viewing. And then the third was for this podcast. Yeah. My notes.
What I had written down from this interaction with Sienna and Genevieve was like, is it because they decided to take on trades that they weren't considered real ladies, or was it already the station that they were born into that supposedly made them not real ladies? I was just curious because, you know, we have the whole Eloise Penelope dynamic of trying to be outside of societal norms. So I just wasn't sure. I couldn't gauge it.
Oh, I definitely gathered that was the stock that they came from, because I think if Daphne knew how to, you know, be a seamstress, her mom would not have honed that craft, because she was honing her to be a wife. You know what I mean?
Which is crazy too when you think about it, because the level of talent that they both had in their respective fields. Like Sienna really could sing.
Absolutely.
Genevieve can whip together a dress, honey,
in no time.
And they are not legit in the That's just it's mind blowing, right? Based on
sneak to be with them.
Like the idea, especially now, of the devaluing of women based on these experiences or these talents that they have because of the era was glaring.
Absolutely. Okay, so the working ladies are essentially trying to figure out what they need to do, especially the opera singer, because she don't have her sugar daddy anymore. And so they knew exactly where to go, and they went to the gentleman's club where they flirted with the guys. And guess who was there? Simon and Anthony. And I really felt uncomfortable how Anthony was so possessive of the opera singer. Like it was the way he was like staring her down from across the room. I'm just like, sir, you're the one that broke it off with her. You probably shouldn't have started it because you knew she wasn't married material, but that's asking too much, you know? I don't know.
Yet again, why I call Anthony a fuckboy, because of course you want her so much and you want to still be in possession of her, even though you broke up with her, broke her heart potentially, took away whatever financial resources you had coming her way, and she's just trying to figure out her next move. So now you want to be trying to stare her down. I was not here for Anthony this entire series, and especially in these moments.
Ooh. I hear you. But guess what? She started up a conversation with Simon and invited him to one of her shows and to meet her after one of her performances. So that was getting kind of sticky for me. Just a little bit.
Well, did she know all the dynamics of their friendship? And
probably
if she
not.
Did,
messy.
Is that her? is that on her to respect that boundary?
Well said. At that point, no.
Listeners, y'all be the judge, okay?
Exactly. Daphne and Anthony have a discussion about Simon, and she finally understands a little bit about him and his reasonings for not ever wanting to get married. He was a loner, and that's something that she didn't know. Again, one of my favorite parts is at the art exhibit at Somerset, and a lot of things happen with for the Featheringtons. Marina is back on the market. The idea is to scheme her way in getting married to a really old crusty man and providing him an heir, or you know, they'll be less likely affected by her being pregnant, so to speak. But she's just not having it. And I thought it was very interesting how much agency she had for herself. And she didn't break under the weight of the power and position of the Featherington. She really stayed her own person, and that's something that I did appreciate about her character.
When Lady Featherington, I have in my notes, a rich white woman trying to take a black girl to the hood to scare her. Please, you're hilarious. You're hilarious. You think this is gonna bother me? I'm not one of your little, what she called them, little like timid or something daughters. Like, yeah. I'm not them. This does not bother me.
So during this art exhibit also, we get a chance to see the prince taking an interest on Daphne, and Daphne blowing off the prince. I was so surprised by that. She was like, oh, well, enjoy your rounds. Bye. Because she had eyes for Simon. And at this point, as a viewer, I'm panicking because I'm just like, ma'am, why are you chasing this man that's not available? You got a prince on hand, on deck, and you are about to blow him off for someone who is completely unavailable.
Delora,
I digress.
That's when I knew it was love. That's when I knew it was love. Because I put down, I said, perfectly good suitor comes along in the way of a prince, and yet Daphne can't stay away from Simon. That's when you know it's love, because you a fool for this man.
Unhealthy.
Now you're
unhealthy.
Fool for this man.
Unhealthy. And one of my favorite parts, we talk about resistance. We talk about stolen glances. They ponder over this painting that's actually part of Simon's collection that he allowed the exhibit to borrow, and is a piece for his mother. And they reach for each other's hands, Ashley. Mm-hmm. So this is the part where they're like, oh, the feelings are mutual. How did you feel at this point as a viewer?
Again, the sexual tension was already building for me, so I knew that we were getting to this point. But it's to your point early on about the subtleness of the stolen moments. It was like, I feel it. I feel the heat, you know?
Yes.
And at the end of this, Simon also shows that he's gotten more into it, because he does not go to that opera singer. He goes home.
Not at all. And I have that in my notes. I was like, he likes her. He doesn't even go to the opera. He doesn't even go to the opera.
Tis mutual. You see both of them rejecting their usual behaviors. Absolutely. Before him, Daphne would have been betrothed to that prince in 2 days. He would have been out banging every chick in town.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And oh my goodness. And then speaking of, they actually like each other, the promenade, they have the talk. At this point, Daphne is asking him like, hey, what goes on in a relationship after marriage? And he was like, stuff happens. And she's like, but what stuff? And he took his time to explain to her,
oh, Jesus,
what happens. And I'm just like, I'm fanning myself right now. He's like, oh, the stuff you do when you're alone. What do I do when I'm alone? Actually, when I tell you, I was like, I was Daphne was I, when I was like so young. I was like, oh my God, what is
well, I'm nasty, because this scene right here, I felt the flutters. I was like, can somebody come whisper in my ear real quick? Oh my goodness. This was perhaps my favorite scene of the entire show. Again, I'm nasty, so I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this heavily. I was like, oh my God.
I was like, the look on her face, though, it was like, okay, good to know. And guess what she did? But it was
such good acting. It was such you felt that like vulnerability and like innocence. And for him to be telling her this, it was like the coming into a certain sense of womanhood. Oh my gosh. I felt it.
Girl. And then the next, more important scene, Daphne went to her bedroom and turned on, oops, there goes my shirt over my head.
If Missy Elliott has to tell y'all one more time, that show was not about masturbation. The lies. That's a lie, Missy. Don't lie to me. I'm turning red. Who could this be? What you talking about? That ain't just appreciation for your skin. Anyway, I digress. the subtleness of the scene as far as her masturbation scene goes is so refreshing compared to a lot of shows these days. And I have in my notes Mrs. Fletcher. I don't know if you watched that on HBO.
I don't.
I'm a big fan of Katherine Hahn, but I was so tired of seeing her masturbate in this show, I almost stopped watching it. Almost every episode, she's, because it's supposed to be about like her sexual awakening at a certain age and time in her life.
I know, and she's an empty nester, but yeah.
But the subtlety of this era made this so much spicier because we have the complete opposite in society now. It feels
That's
like
true. That's very true. And she had the rose he gave her.
But even the wonderful way they ended it with her finishing her piece and Eloise being like, "So you finished," and that being a nod to her coming. You know what I mean? Like all of that, just the
very
subtleness.
Classy. I agree. And you don't always need to be so blunt, right? Like in the matters of the heart. But
come whisper a little 19th century language in my ear, baby.
He said pinnacle, and I was like, okay. After this promenade, after this conversation, Lady Danbury kind of had a come to Jesus talk with Simon, like, poop or get off the pot, right? Like, what are you doing? What are your intentions? And apparently this got to him because he cut her off so hard, so harshly. Like, he was like, we were never friends. You were merely
a convenience.
And
it reminded me of Sebastian in Cruel Intentions. Remember when he has that talk with Reese where he's pushing her away because of the bet?
But he said, we were friends. What a ridiculous notion. That is crushing. So Daphne is crushed. Okay. And this was hard. And more bad news. Marina gets a letter. She gets a letter from her soldier boo, and he is essentially cutting it off. He's talking about, I don't even know you. I don't know this baby. The baby ain't mine. Like, I am not the father. And she is crushed. But you find out very quickly that Lady Featherington forged that letter. That was evil. The one thing about this show, I will say, there wasn't an overarching bitch in the show, right? Like, everybody had moments, nuances to themselves, but there wasn't like a queen bee. There was no Regina George to constantly hate, because honestly, I was really nervous. I was prepared to not like Lady Featherington, because she was just, the way she was trying to downplay Marina to the other people of society, and they were like, oh, she's quite gorgeous, and she was like, oh, well,
I kept wondering, like, is this supposed to be racial? You know what I mean? Like, where is this animosity stemming from? Or class,
you know? So just heartbroken. And then lastly, the most important thing from this episode is, after being completely crushed by Simon and also being confronted by Miss Cowper, Daphne decided, I threw my hair, tossed, checked my nails. She was
baby,
like,
how you feeling?
Feeling good as hell, because she walked into that last ball feeling herself, and she had everyone's attention.
Baddest bitch in the room is what I
put down. She threw that fan on the floor and was like, sir, please pick it up.
Ate it up.
And guess what he did? He gleefully picked that fan and he said, I must have your first dance. And Simon was salty as heck. Salty.
I wrote down too, it seemed like she had never really truly wielded her power that she had, right? Daphne knew that she possessed it, but she had never wielded it till this moment.
But she had to unlock it with her sexual awakening.
Oh, is that what it is?
This is how these stories go. I can't say if this is true or not, but it was like she had her first heartbreak. She had her first big O. And she was ready to go. Okay.
Yeah. I feel you. Very true. Valid, true, all the things. You got this.
All right, last episode, an affair of honor. Daphne receives a stunning gift from the Prince Frederick, but soon courts scandal at a ball. Eloise searches for clues to Lady Whistledown's identity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Daphne and her mama are invited to the palace, and the prince gives her this gorgeous diamond necklace. And guess what, Ashley? She only has
Thoughts of
Simon.
Damn it.
This prince is so sweet. He would do anything she wanted him to do too, but she ain't thinking about him. She's thinking about that broken man who got daddy issues. But who knows how to have a good conversation?
That chemistry. It's chemistry. It's something that cannot be created or duplicated. It's real.
Eloise and Penelope talk about them wanting independence and wanting to not just wait to be chosen, but to fly. And then Eloise is inspired to uncover the identity of Lady Whistledown because she herself admires the independence and the wealth that's associated with this hustle. And she goes on this grand search. There's a boxing match, Ashley.
Yeah.
And our boy Will this is his expedition game, and he has Simon to stay because after he broke it off with Daphne, he was ready to go. He was ready to go anywhere but there because, again, he has never been loved or hugged, and he runs away from all signs of caring because he doesn't understand it's the foreign feeling for him, you know?
Except for Lady Danbury.
Exactly.
The one tie he has.
But Daphne shows up at this boxing expedition or match, and she's on the arm first with her brother Anthony, but then the prince. And the prince is talking about babies and everything, Ashley.
I know.
And but luckily, rooting for everybody black, Will won.
Beat some ass.
And Simon and Daphne steals glances of each other throughout the whole time when Daphne got a whole ass prince talking about babies with her. She is looking at that broken man from across the room.
This judgment, you know that it's love. You know she at this point her feelings is deep.
It's poor decision making. Okay, you gotta be.
You're speaking with your head. She's feeling with her heart.
Okay.
We all know this was not. It's unfortunate, but the love is there with Simon. It is not there with the prince, as lovely and wonderful as he appears to be. He'd be
after the match
in real life.
He would be. But I don't know. I like good guys, so maybe not. I don't know.
You would fall for Simon. Quit playing,
girl.
You talking real tough on this mic. You better quit playing.
I would have respected his wishes. He said he ain't gonna never get married. What do I look like?
After all these little hidden conversations and him awakening you to certain things, you would have been 10 toes down too. You better stop playing.
Girl, moving on, okay? Apparently, Mama Bridgerton was not happy about Daphne going to a boxing because ladies don't go to boxing matches. But guess what? It worked because her brother has a proposal in hand. So essentially, he got the prince is smitten, and he was ready to propose. And guess what was Daphne's first reaction to it?
So soon?
Girl,
your disappointment.
It'll continue, okay?
Oh.
So her mom, though, very not that impressed, because the mom does drop the ball later on in the series, but she sees that Daphne's not really feeling the prince the way the level of excitement isn't there. And she's just like, babe, you can always go to Simon. And she's like, Simon's not available, Mom. And
it was all a ruse.
It was all a ruse. And her mom was just like, oh my goodness, honey, I had no idea.
But it was eye-opening to see that her mother, even given the era, wanted her daughter to find love over rank. I thought that was a very powerful mother-daughter moment.
Exactly. And that showed a lot of heart, like you mentioned, because guess what Featherington would have done? Okay.
Oh yeah. Look who Anthony was trying to get her married off to. I mean, thank God for her mother.
Exactly. Because her mama has eyes too, because that's the one thing Anthony is like, I wish you would get a chick you weren't remotely attracted to. I don't care about her credentials or nothing.
He didn't want nothing to do with any woman outside of Sienna. So no.
Exactly. But it's so funny because Daphne's confessing to her mom that it was all a ruse, and she's crying. She's like, she was like, I'm really okay. I'm really happy. And it's like, you wouldn't be crying this much if you were. Like, I really love this necklace, Mom. Stop asking me. Oh my gosh. Okay. But again, Lady Danbury is always there to tell Simon about himself. And as he's preparing to leave, because again, completely heartbroken, because again, revenge over everything for him. She was like, how dare you let this young girl slip through your fingers? And, she's like, I know you view love and devotion as trite and futile, but she's like, love conquers all. And I'm just like, this is very rainbows and butterflies. But yeah, because we also find out that they do bring up race very briefly, and stating that if their king hadn't married Charlotte, their people would not have gained their status in their society. Yes. So this is like the only time they bring it up. And I thought it was very interesting and how they decided to do that.
And that's also why I brought up earlier about his father, and about his father seeming like he may have taken it to another level in terms of rank, because he talks about in that one of his first talks with Simon early on when he was a kid that, we were assigned this and I can't just let this fall in anybody's hands. And you could see as a Black man how he might have felt in that era, but it does not justify his behavior whatsoever, obviously. At all. But because that was just another layer.
Him as a person obviously lacked some.
Yeah, he was a heartless person. He didn't care about his wife. He didn't care about his child. He only cared about his rank. And you should never be that focused on something like that it trumps humanity, obviously. But it just, in my opinion, gave an extra layer to understanding why his father also behaved the way he did. Again, that's the only little bit of grace I give him, because he was a monster.
A monster. And lastly, Simon ends the conversation and he says that he believes love changes nothing. He feels like it can come as quickly as it goes. And I put in my notes, this man needs a hug.
Aww.
We are now at Trowbridge Brawl. I just have peanut butter in my mouth. Okay. Daphne is being twirled around by this prince, and he is ready to propose. And she goes into a panic, Ashley. She goes into panic, and in the middle of him about to say, will you be my wife? She's just like, I need to take a breather.
Yeah. I'm spotting Simon somewhere around here. Thought he was gone.
I thought he was gone. And I thought he wasn't there too. I thought it was just just her imagination. But apparently it wasn't. And she goes outside, and there is Simon. Apparently Lady Danbury got to him because he decided to go to the ball to bid farewell to Daphne. They go in, they have an interesting exchange. So I'll start with this. She was like, you don't need to tell me bye because we're not friends. And essentially, Daphne is just telling him that I'm over it and I'm over these games that you're playing with me. And so she's really giving a brave face. And she goes and tells him, I'm going to be a princess.
With all the conviction she does not truly have in her heart.
And Simon says nothing. And she runs into the garden. And Simon follows her. And Ashley, he catches up to her and they passionately kiss. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a quick break right here and say, when I watched this the first time, I had utter dread. I was like, you are not about to make out with this dude and quote unquote tamper yourself. And he's not going to marry you, boo. You got a prince ready to propose. And you out here making out with a man who's unavailable. And guess what? Anthony finds them in the garden and demands Simon marry her for tainting his sister. Mm-hmm. And what does Simon say, Ashley?
Simon says, no, I will not marry Daphne.
Busted lip and all. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I will not marry you. And she is in awe. She was like, what do you mean? And then so Anthony's like, a duel. If you were not going to marry her, a duel. And he was like, all right, sure. And Daphne's like, you
would rather die than marry me.
What did you think about this whole scene, Ashley?
I felt, for one, that yet again, Anthony is getting in the middle of things he does not fully understand.
Ooh, interesting.
But at the same time, I felt that in this one moment, for once, I felt his anger to be justified.
Yes.
Because for sure, at this point, Simon is putting Daphne, to your earlier point, in a very precarious situation. We've already talked about this is an era where women cannot be seen in the company of men without a chaperone. And yet y'all are out here fully mad. I thought he was lifting up her dress. I'm like, are you about to rip that dress off?
He had a handful of her bosom. It was intense. But I didn't get a chance to enjoy their first kiss, because this is their first kiss, by the way. I didn't even get a chance to enjoy it because I'm thinking, again, I'm very pragmatic in my thinking, okay? It's like, you don't touch her, you don't kiss her. You're technically not even supposed to be in the same room by yourselves.
Alone. But it wasn't surprising at this point because, again, things have been building romantically.
No, but I just was concerned about her.
No, me too. The duel took it to another level. I'm like, oh, this is the era where we challenge people to the death?
It sure is, Ashley.
This got real. Okay.
And so a distraught Daphne goes back to the ball, and little Miss
Cressida.
I've been calling her by her last name. She asked her if she got to chill in the garden. being real petty. And so the rest of the episode, go ahead.
Real quick, the reason why Cressida at this point is being so petty is because of the rivalry she feels like she has with Daphne for the affections of the prince. Because Cressida actually likes him and feels that this is
her only
chance for her. And her mother earlier says, oh, my daughter has the money, but to Mrs. Bridgerton, your daughter has the looks. So when your own mama talks trash on your name, you can see why Cressida may be a little insecure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, girl.
Although if Cressida was in any 90s movie, she would be Regina George, but okay.
She would definitely be in the squad of cheerleaders that are walking down the hall.
Absolutely.
Even if she wasn't number one, she'd be 2 or 3 on the side. So
exactly. And speaking to the Daphne Simon storyline, the evening is full of the Bridgerton brothers coming together, preparing for this duel. Daphne is distraught. She's just like, I am a woman. You make it seem like it was only Simon's idea. I put myself in this position too. We can work this out. You can't be so reckless. I realize, again, Anthony's recklessness has a lot to do with him being the firstborn and that his dad dying so unexpectedly young. Mm-hmm. And so he feels like he might have a similar fate to his father. So he's kind of balls to the walls kind of guy.
He was very patronizing though towards Daphne, because in my opinion, Daphne is so much more intelligent in her maneuvering and the way that she sees things, because Daphne is beyond this relationship with Simon. Daphne is very practical. She is.
Very true. I gather that as well. And getting ready for this duel, Anthony went to go see his opera boo one last time. Aww. And they have their moments. And again, it's the morning of the duel, and Daphne got no sleep, and she goes and convinced Colin to tell her where the duel is. And during this time, Simon has Will as his second. And again, the second born Bridgerton is Anthony's second, Benedict. And I put in my notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 duel commandments.
This so reminded me of, what was the movie that came out back in the 90s with Paul Walker and Joshua Jackson? Was it The Skulls?
Ooh, I did enjoy that movie.
That's what this scene reminded me of a little bit.
Really?
Because remember, they have a duel, and their saying was, we live by the sword, we die by the sword.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a throwback, y'all. That was a throwback.
Girl, that's a deep cut.
Yeah, R.I.P. Paul Walker.
I know, and like hard eyes for Josh.
Mm-hmm.
So, right at the moment that they both take their shot, Daphne is in the middle, and she is thrown off her white horse. In a moment of panic, they check to see how she's doing. She's fine. She has a heart-to-heart with Simon. She's like, you can't go through with this. We have to figure out something because we were seen. And if we don't figure out something, I will be ruined. And he was like, I'm sorry, we cannot get married. And so he opens up during this moment and told her that if we were to wed, I can never give you children. And I know that is what you deserve. I know that is what you want. And I cannot ask you for this sacrifice. And Anthony comes back to Simon and Daphne and informs them that we have to resume this duel before we get caught. And Daphne closes this episode by stating, no need to continue. Simon and I are getting married.
Dum, dum, dum.
Meet me at the altar in your white dress.
We're getting no younger, we might as well do it.
I hated that song, by the way, because what type of proposal is that? We ain't getting no younger. Please marry me for love. Please marry me because you can't live without me.
Somebody was keeping it all the way real. That was some real songwriting. Jagged Edge is like, listen, let's just keep it 100. Ain't nobody getting married out of because I want to. I'm getting married because I guess it's about that time. So
Ashley, what did you think about Daphne forcing Simon to marry her?
I wouldn't even say I felt like she forced him at this moment. I think she made a call, which was...
It was a bold call.
Yeah,
bold.
You may think that you're supposedly doing what's in my best interest, but we both know at this point that this is what needs to happen. So again, to my thought that Daphne has always been very practical, besides her obvious intentions with Simon and not his inavailability. At this particular moment in time, this is the most practical solution, because to her point, she probably would have been ruined. Cressida was going to run her mouth. Simon was never, in my opinion, really going to want to leave Daphne alone. So let's just go ahead and get married. No, I don't. The way that things were going, I think he would have returned to town at some point and be like, listen, I made a mistake. I love you, girl. I made a mistake. So no, I think that this was a practical solution. But at this time, I was wondering, how is this really going to work out? Because Daphne, we know that you want some babies. So
that's all she wanted.
So what are we going to do? What are we going to do from here?
And again, her being so naive, she didn't even know the mechanics of that.
Bless her whole heart. There was one other item that I felt worth note, which was the Featheringtons and the fact that they were broke.
Girl, yes, thank you for that. I kind of went over that for the sake of time, but yes. Lady Featherington started searching through the study, and she confronted her husband, and his gambling problems have put them in major debt. We find out that Marina is actually there because it was a favor to a man that he owes money to. And therefore, I have to say, I have always thought he was creepy AF. I was concerned that he had some weird arrangement with Marina when she first got there, like the way he would stare at her. I'm like, is that secretly his daughter that we just don't know about?
Or not leave, like when she was like, are you going to go for your walk? Oh, it looks like it's going to rain. What are you talking about? It's not about to rain. Creepy. What was his intentions? You couldn't really tell. But again, because the series is set up where the Featheringtons and the Bridgertons are the two main families. That's the only reason why I wanted to make a point of that, because, you know, it made a difference in the way he was navigating his own daughter's potential arranged marriages, all of that. So that was my only last note from these first four.
And the last thing about the Featheringtons, Penelope snapped at Eloise. Eloise is... Oh,
yes, she sure did.
Is very invested in the identity of Lady Whistledown, and Penelope told her, you know, I am a single woman out here in these streets, and my concerns are much bigger than these.
Yeah, and also she was unfortunately taking out frustration she had from Marina and Colin, because at this point you see Marina seemingly intending to take advantage of the feelings Colin has developed for her.
Yes.
And Penelope's not here for it. So that was just a little, that was some misplaced frustration on Penelope's part.
It was. And thank you so much, Ashley. And we'll have part 2 next week. Are you ready for the hidden gems?
I am. You want me to go first?
Yes, please.
I'm going to try to roll through these. I do have 4 this week, but that's just because there's been a lot of downtime, guys. So I've been watching a lot of ish. Okay, so I'm all over the place in my streaming. So my first series is on AppleTV. It's called Homes, 9 episodes. Episode 1 was really my favorite of the 9. It hooked me. It was this Swedish greenhouse. The premise of the series is basically all these unique homes in all different parts of the world, from Sweden to Bali to Chicago, all over the place. And it's, for one, if you get into architecture, you get into, eco-friendly living, all of those aspects are there, but also just the ingenuity, the technology, all of it was dope. There's one lady in Bali who literally is making homes out of bamboo. It was dope. So that's on Apple TV. My second series is Love Life on HBOMax. It's a 10 half-hour episodes. Anna Kendrick is the star of the show.
Yes, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, it's just really cute. You know, it's just a little lighter type of show where you're really navigating through her love life and kind of her life from maybe her early 20s to possibly her early 30s time span. And you get, every episode ends with the producers and Anna really talking through things. And, you know, I live for after show where people are talking through the dynamics. Absolutely. So loved that about the series. My third is Yearly Departed on Amazon. This was a film. That. It was so interesting. So it was hosted by Phoebe Johnson from Two Dope Queens. It's a comedy special and features eulogies for 2020 with an all-star lineup of female comedians, from Tiffany Haddish to Sarah Silverman to Natasha Rothwell to Natasha Leggero. The highlight of the whole thing for me almost, though, was the discovery of the song Low Key Fuck 2020 by Avenue Beat. that ended it. I was like, I never knew this song existed, but I am completely here for it.
That's so funny.
My final is Dare Me. This is a series on Netflix. It was originally a USA Network show.
I saw that. I didn't watch it, but yeah.
You definitely should watch it. It took on a new life getting added to Netflix. I believe it was in Netflix's top 10 when it first dropped. It's a teen drama series based in the world of high school cheerleading. It's 10 episodes. I absolutely need a season 2 of this show. And USA Network canceled it, so everybody's hoping that because of the popularity on Netflix, it gets a season 2. Rarely do I do this, but I signed a petition on change.org for a season 2 because that's how invested and how much I enjoyed season 1.
Then.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm gonna need y'all Netflix, if you're listening, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and get that together. So those are my 4 hidden gems for this week.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome. And I know I was talking fast, guys. Don't forget, these are always listed in our information wherever you're listening to your podcast. Exactly.
All right. So my hidden gems this week. The first is Outlander. So I actually found Outlander when I was mourning the end of Game of Thrones. I was looking for some type of fantasy, some type of, period piece. And Outlander is a historical drama television show based on the novels of the same name. And it comes on the Starz network. Again, mourning Game of Thrones, found it on Netflix, the first 3 seasons. And I was hooked. Okay. We're talking this woman during the end of the First World War goes to Ireland. She touched some rocks and then she's teleported to the history. I'm sorry, I said Ireland, Scotland. She's teleported back in history. And she falls in love with this redheaded Scotsman who is played by this gorgeous actor named Sam. What is his name? Helen? I don't know how to pronounce it right now. He plays Jamie Fraser. He's gorgeous, by the way. So if you're into like the romance and a little bit of a period piece, it's a little bit distraught because there's a lot of war. It's actually, men can enjoy it too because the war scenes are fantastic in it. But you get the romance and some really intense sex scenes. So,
including some rapes, which is a lot. I'm still not finished.
In today's time, I recommend it because the love stories are wonderful, but season after season, it does weigh on you just a little bit. But the first 2 seasons are my favorite. There are a total of 5 seasons. The second hidden gem this week is a YouTube video. It's a Netflix UK and Ireland. It's on that channel. It's called Drag Queens, the Vivian and Monet Exchange React to Bridgerton. It is hilarious. Okay. I love drag queens. Monet Exchange is one of my favorite drag queens. And the way they talk about Bridgerton is a joy. So highly recommend it. And then my final hidden gem would be Rege Jean Page Instagram. And the reason why I specifically am bringing up his Instagram is because I've been following his Instagram since I started watching the show. So I didn't watch it exactly on Christmas Day, but I watched it in 2 days. And when I watch things, I like to Google people and look up their Instagrams. And when I first saw his page, he was around 92,000 followers. When I started following him, he was around 100,000. So a week after Bridgerton was out, he had 1.1 million followers. Mm-hmm. As of today, he has 1.7 million followers. Mm-hmm. The thirst is real, and I'm here for it. And it just brought me joy. And more importantly, I look forward to his career. I was mentioning Beards earlier. I followed him on Roots, the remake of Roots, and I also followed him on We the People, which is another Shonda Rhimes show that only got 2 seasons. Knew he was handsome, didn't do anything for me. He got that beard in Bridgerton. And then he's also brooding. He's also very brooding and very wounded. You know, women love a broken wing bird. But those are my hidden gems this week.
Okay, perfect. Well, guys, thank you for sticking with us for our first half of Bridgerton. We will come back with our second half, episodes 5 through 8 next week. Laura, what is our ask of our listeners this week?
Yes, we would love to hear from you all. More importantly, we would love to hear your ratings for the shows that we recap. So feel free to reach us through social media at Recap and Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter, preferably Instagram. Go ahead and DM us there. And we will share your rating in a post and or in stories. So you'll get exposures both ways. So,
and if you happen to not be on social media, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast as well. No worries.
Of course.
Because we also have a Gmail account. So it's recapping. Is it recapping@gmail.com, I believe?
Recapping podcast at
recappingpodcast@gmail.com. All right. Well, guys, I know we've been a little long this week, so we'll go ahead and get out of here. Have a blessed day, week, what have you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.